The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Albany County News. I'm Mary Rozak, the Director of Communications for Albany County. And I'm hoping that in the next, 30 minutes or so, you're going to find out some things about Albany County that you find interesting, and maybe a program or service that you can take advantage of, or you know someone who can. And we are going to be talking today about the Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region and some of the services and programs that they provide. And joining me today is Lissa Director of Community Relations. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Paul Stewart. Paul is the Director of Training and Technical Assistance. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for having us.
Well, the program in and of itself, I think it's a mouthful, Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region. And I think when people think about loans, they may think bank. You're not a bank. You are and you aren't, right, so to speak?
Well, yeah, the difference between what we do and a bank, there are many differences, but we don't take deposits from people, and that's a lot of times that's the difference that people talk about. We're a community development financial institution, which is a nonprofit organization that meets certain guidelines set by the United States Treasury Department, and what that means is that we have been able to put together a loan pool, $10 to $12 million revolving fund that we loan out to community projects such as not-for-profit organizations, small businesses, principally those areas. We do a little bit of home repair work as well.
So that is for individuals too?
Right.
Okay.
Right. But chiefly we focus on the small businesses and the not-for-profit organizations.
Okay. You cover a wide area, though. It's an 11 county area.
11 counties, right. So from Warren, Washington to Columbia Green, and from Rensselaer County to Montgomery County, and all those in between, including Schoharie and Fulton. So Albany, Schenectady, Troy, and which is where most of the people in that region live, in Saratoga County. Mm-hmm. And so we look for businesses and nonprofits in those areas, and that's where we try to focus our energies.
I should have started out by saying congratulations. It's the 30th anniversary for
30
the
years, yeah.
Yes.
That's quite a long time, and quite a list of projects and investors and things that you've done over the years.
Yeah, over 700 projects that we've been involved in. Mm-hmm. And everything from hair salons to construction companies to homeless shelters, travel agencies, all sorts of things that we've been involved with.
Well, what I found particularly interesting when I was talking to Lissa, and not that all of your work isn't interesting, but what I thought was interesting is the investor. And before I have you walk me through what someone who has a project or is looking for funding might do, how do you actually get that money? What does the face of the investor look like?
That's a great question. We have individual investors. We have financial institutions that are investors. When we look at the number of people, organizations that invest in the Community Loan Fund, 61% are individual investors. So they're everyday people like you and I.
So
Yes.
I have, but I'm not a rich woman.
I know. Well, and most of our investors are not. Okay. Most of our investors are committed to community development. They look around their neighborhood. They see areas where maybe the businesses there are not as bankable, the nonprofits there are not as bankable, and so if they lend us money and the minimum investment is $1,000, we then pool it and we can lend it back out to projects. And by pooling that money, that's where we can have a huge impact. So it's everyday people with $1,000 that is still their money, but they're just letting us borrow it. And while they're letting us borrow it, they're collecting interest on it.
Interesting.
It's wonderful.
So 61%.
61% of our investors
Wow.
are individuals.
Wow, that's fascinating, because that really shows that the community truly is, people that live in this community are truly invested in the community.
Absolutely. There are people really from all over the region that have put money into the loan fund with the purpose of that money being, in a sense, returned to the community in terms of financing for community-based projects. So.
All right, so let's say I have $1,000. Walk me through this process. I have $1,000, and I come in to the community loan fund, and I say, I'd like to invest. I'd like to give you this $1,000. What happens? What do I do?
Our Director of Development, Linda Chandler, would meet with you, and she would talk to you about how long you're willing to lend us that money for. And depending on how long you're willing to lend us the money for is also, that determines your interest rate. For 1 year, I think it might be 0.5%, and then for more than a year, for 2 years, I think it's 1%, and above 2-3 years, it could be 1.5%.
Okay.
So the longer you lend us the money, the more good we're able to do with it, because when we make loans, if we can make longer loans, it allows the money to be used in the community that much longer. So if we have a business that comes in, we're allowed to go out longer with that business because we have your money working for longer.
Okay.
So Linda would sit down with you, and she would work out those details, and she'd have a contract with you, and you would sign it, and she would sign it, and you would give her the check, and then every year she would get in touch with you about your interest and send you that, and in 3 years she would contact you if your term was for 3 years and say, would you like to reinvest?
Interesting. So do you have, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know how many people do turn around and reinvest?
I think large percent of them reinvest.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a good solid way to have an investment in the community and see some concrete returns for it. And it's what we call the double bottom line. So it's not just the interest rate return people are getting, but also the return that they know that they're doing some social good with their funds.
Right.
Interesting. So now we've talked about how to get involved as an investor. Let's go to the flip side. You talked about a number of businesses or individuals. Let's talk about each of those segments that you might grant a loan to, whomever wants to address that.
One of the things I just wanted to point out when Paul was going through the overview about the nonprofits and the businesses, again, we try to focus in on small businesses and nonprofits that aren't necessarily bankable. So the ones that are higher risk.
Can you explain? Oh, higher risk. Okay.
They're
Gotcha.
higher risk. And so if you go to a bank, you might not meet their underwriting requirements, whereas with us, we look more at the whole person. We're able to do that because we're a local organization. It's not just about credit rating. And so we're able to be a little bit more flexible in terms of who we make the loans to, and we're able to make loans to people who might not have ready access to credit. Predominantly women, people of color, people of low income. They're the communities that we see that traditionally don't have wonderful access to credit, to capital. And so those are the communities that we focus on.
That sounds good, but how do you actually guarantee that? How do you know if they're not bankable and you're taking a risk? How do you know that you're actually protecting that investor's money at the same time?
Great question.
Yeah, we actually do a lot of the same kinds of things that banks tend to do in terms of analyzing and underwriting those projects. So, we're going to look at the credit history. We're going to ask them for a business plan. We're going to look at their background and whether or not they have the readiness to be able to engage in the project that they're proposing, and we certainly want to see some investment from them as well. So these are a number of areas that we scrutinize, and then we sit and we weigh it and consider it. We ask the question, is it in line with our mission and what we were trying to do? And if it is, it's something that we can work with.
And one of the things that we do, which is very different than the bank model, and is allowed by the community development model, and supported by the community development model, is exactly what Paul does. He provides a lot of training and technical assistance.
Yeah, and so there are some people who maybe are not ready.
Right.
Either they're sorting it out and trying to figure it out, or maybe they've got something with their project and it really needs a little bit of help in terms of bringing it together a little more sharply and that sort of thing. And so our training and technical assistance support that we try to provide for people is an important element there. We have a small business class that we do. We do it 3 times a year. It's a collaboration with the College of St. Rose. We do a lot of one-on-one counseling with people. We also do a lot of workshops around special areas that traditionally are problems for small businesses, such as working with their bookkeeping or maybe their marketing, other areas like that.
Okay, interesting. I want to take a moment to remind people we are talking with folks from the Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region, Lissa Diaquani and Paul Stewart joining us today. So let's talk a little bit more about the training and that technical aspect. So how many times, let's say people come in with plans, and how many times do you see they really do need more extensive training?
It really varies from individual to individual. Sometimes people will just come in, they'll have an idea, and then they need to sit with somebody and walk through what are the details of that idea in order to put a plan together. Other people come in with a little more preparation and background, and they may not need as much help. The courses that we do...
Wouldn't you say, though, Paul, is that just about everybody
most
that comes in,
needs a little something.
That needs something.
Sure.
There's some element.
Yeah.
And the fact that Paul and our loan officers are able to identify that something and work with them to fix it, I think is what makes it so effective, makes the program so effective.
Right.
Okay. So they come in, you've identified something they need help with one thing or 10 things.
So we work with them in as many sessions as it takes in order to pull their plan together. And then that plan then will go to our lending department. The plan and the application will go to our lending department, and they can look at the other aspects of the overall picture, the credit, and do some research on what it is that they're actually trying to do and where in the community, that sort of thing. And if the project then has all the elements that it needs to move forward, then they can be considered by our loan committee and either approved. Usually the committee will say yes, no, or needs work. And if they say no or needs work, they usually specify why, and it's something that people can work on.
Okay. How long does the process take?
It varies.
Take anywhere from 1 month.
It can be anywhere from
to
a month to
3 months.
2-3 months.
Really
it depends on the project.
how much support the project needs.
Yeah.
Can I talk a little bit, though, about why the work is so important, though?
Go ahead.
Because this is, and I looked at Albany County numbers just before we came in today. So over the 30 years, we've had $20 million that we've loaned out to community development projects, which has leveraged an additional $55 million.
Okay.
So that's $75 million that's being invested in the Capital Region in Albany County that might not have been invested because we're doing that community development work. And breaking those numbers down, 72 of them have been minority-owned businesses. 70 of them have been women-owned businesses. It's created over 1,000 jobs, and it's created more than 600 units of affordable housing.
Okay.
So again, when we look at the impact in Albany County, it really is very tangible. And then, putting the faces on it, in terms of some of the nonprofits, we've helped the Community Land Trust, Arbor Hill Development Corporation, the Underground Railroad History Project, which Paul can talk more about because that's his baby, Capital Car Share, Interfaith Partnership for the Housing. When we look at the small businesses, we've helped JAFJR Construction that Paul was mentioning. They're in our incubator, which Paul could talk more about. We have an incubator upstairs in our building for small businesses, which is wonderful.
And you're talking about the building on Orange Street.
Yeah, 255 Orange Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's about 10 businesses that are in there, plus some nonprofits, and they're all doing exciting work in terms of what they bring to the community.
Right.
Well, let Lissa finish up, and then we're going to talk about that incubator.
Sure.
Okay. Bake For You and the Cheese Traveler over 540 on Delaware Ave. Great local businesses, and Eric actually went through our small business class. Linda received a lot of mentoring, and both of them received loans through us. There's a salon out in Delmar. There's a physical therapy place out in New Scotland. There's a fabric store down in Glenmont. So lots of diversity in terms of what we've supported and helped. And again, it's been the whole range from maybe just a couple of meetings to a lot of work with the business plan. But all of these businesses are doing great.
Well, we're going to get to the incubator in 1 second, but my question right now has to do with how much money or how little money. What is there a range? When someone will come in and ask?
Well, there is a range. We usually will tell people that we set, up to $25,000 for a business that's just starting up, and up to $50,000 for a business that's been in operation a year or more. But that really doesn't kind of capture the whole thing, because it can be any small amount, as little as $500. But I mean, certainly we have to put some of the same kind of energy into, vetting that as we would something larger. And projects can be larger, but we would work in partnership with other financial institutions. So, for instance, we had a project some years ago that was a $100,000 project. We did 50, and another financial institution did 50. So there are opportunities.
So would that be a conventional, what one would think of as a conventional bank, or would it be?
In that case, it was a credit union.
Okay. Interesting.
And Mary, it goes back to your point before about being good stewards of investors' money. So just because our level is $25,000, if we work with a business and identify that they really only need $15,000, it would be it wouldn't be the smartest move for them or for us to do a $25,000 loan, because then they're overextending. So if they need $15,000, let's do the loan for $15,000, and then if in a year they need another 10, or whatever, we can revisit that. But to make sure that they're borrowing what they need to be successful, and then working with them to help them be successful.
The right amount for the project.
Is it easier when you've already had a loan to get another loan, to get that $10,000
more? Well, in the
more?
sense that you've been vetted already at a certain level, but
would think, sure.
we like to look at each project as they come through.
Sure. Well, let's talk now about the incubator, because that's something that I was not aware of.
Sure. 255 Orange Street, the Albany Center for Economic Success. It's the building that we are housed in, and they're actually a subsidiary of the Community Loan Fund. And the incubator has been around since sometime in the 1990s.
Yes.
And it was originally started as a community project where a number of people who were involved with various construction firms wanted to have a place where some of the businesses could be, and they wanted to have opportunities for other businesses. We moved into the building about 17 or 18 years ago, and over time we've worked together with them such that they've become a subsidiary of ours. And we do provide space for about 10 or 12 businesses that function in there. Printing business, marketing business, a lawn service, just businesses that need a place to get started. They can get started there, they can move on. One of the ones that we've been really tickled about of late has been this JAFJR Construction Services, which really started from a very small company. They had an opportunity to reach out and do a contract with Global Foundries, and that's helped them blossom into a very, very successful construction business, minority construction business firm.
So I don't want to talk about JFJR because what they were able to do, they were able to leverage this contract with Global Foundries and use that money. They then employed and trained about 200 people from the region in that trade. So they were able to create jobs through the various contracts and get 200 people trained that wouldn't, again, have had access to that sort of training or skill development. And we also worked with Rocky to help him with the MW, with the certification, the minority business certification, so that he's able to get those contracts. So there are a lot of services that are provided at 255 Orange that really benefits the incubator businesses. Not just the loans and the technical assistance, but the certification. And what we find is that those businesses then bring that forward into the community.
Yeah.
They're not businesses that are just kind of taking the benefits and going off and buying, a yacht. They're taking the benefits and
and
they're putting
doing
it.
things in the community. So all the people that are there are really very community-minded, and they do
Yes.
look for ways and opportunities to extend the benefit, as it were, to people throughout the area.
So their businesses get up and running, and at some point down the road, they move on.
They can kind of move on to other space and continue to be successul. Yeah.
Is there an average time, or it just varies?
It varies from
different
business to
businesses.
business, yeah.
Right.
Interesting. So do you have space now that if there's
Right
some
now,
fledgling
I think we're all
business?
full up. We have a big press on trying to find new tenants right now. So
Do you have a rush? Is there a certain season though that people come to you and say, hey, either number one, we've got money as an investor, or we're looking for some assistance?
you mean as far as being in the business incubator?
Oh,
or just in general?
Just in general.
In general. No, I wouldn't say so, but sometimes when different things happen economically, you find different things. Like right after the recession started, we had a lot of people come in who wanted to participate in our business class. They'd been laid off from their jobs. They had other kinds of economic downturns in their lives, and they were looking for a place where they could have some opportunity. And so that was something where we really provided a good service to help them get the skills and knowledge and know-how to be able to jump into the business area if that's something that was right for them.
When you provide these classes, I know you said you have a partnership with the College of St. Rose.
Right.
Are the classes at St. Rose, or
Most of the time they're at the College of St. Rose.
Okay. I was going to say I've been to the space, and I
Yeah.
know that you're kind of
Occasionally
limited.
we hold them in other places. We have had occasion to hold class in Bethlehem and in Schenectady.
Okay.
And we have a new one starting on January
January
23rd.
23rd.
So it'll be 8 consecutive Saturdays from 9 to noon.
Yeah.
Starting on January 23rd, it'll be in Schenectady. And if people are interested,
Then they should give us a call
give us a
at
call.
436-8586, and we would be happy to send them the material that they need in order to sign up for the course. Or they can drop by our office at 255 Orange Street, Suite 103.
I'm assuming there's a cost
in Albany.
associated.
There is a cost. We do ask $160 for the course.
And scholarships
There
are
are some
available.
scholarships available too. So.
But it's a great course because the course really, it goes through the marketing, the insurance, setting up your business, the
accounting.
legal structure.
There's a whole range of things. Just the basic concepts of entrepreneurship, the business plan, real estate, insurance. So there's a whole range of things that people need to look at and wrestle with and understand if they think they're going to be going forward in a business.
It sounds very manageable. I know sometimes things can be very daunting.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about essentially a half a day, 8 Saturdays.
Right.
And it really
that's-
breaks it down so
Yeah.
that you're not sitting down and saying, I have to write a whole business plan.
Right.
You're sitting down and saying, I'm going to look at my marketing section.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're right, it breaks it down.
And we have some faculty from the College of St. Rose that lead the course, and then there are also some other community business partners who participate in the course as well.
We are talking about the Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region today with Lissa and Paul Stewart. You mentioned that this is happening in Schenectady. You do have an office.
We do have an office
Schenectady.
in Schenectady as well, yes, at 920 Albany Street in Schenectady, which is the old Community Business Center building. And sometimes we do the course there too as well. So we really have an opportunity for people to walk in really throughout the week and talk with one of our staff there at the Business Center. Or they can come to our office in Albany as well. So.
Talk to me about your, this is your job, but it's also, you have a personal involvement with the Community Loan Fund.
True, true.
So talk to me about that involvement. Lissa alluded to it a little bit earlier.
Well, my wife and I have been busy working on something called the Underground Railroad History Project. And in the course of doing that project, which was a rediscovery of the story of the Underground Railroad in the local community, looking at who were the local people that were involved in the Underground Railroad, we came across a building which had been the home of Stephen and Harriet Myers, who were key figures in the Underground Railroad here. And we found that the building was run down. There was part of a wall in the basement that was in the process of collapsing, a problem with the wall in the back. The building had a number of issues. we had formed a not-for-profit organization, the Underground Railroad Project. We were able to purchase the building and work on restoring it. We got it on the National Register of Historic Places almost right away, very quickly, because of the potency of the documentation that was available about the story. And then we were able to apply for some state grants, which enabled us to work at restoring the building. So the way the state grants work is you have to spend the money before you get the money,
Okay.
which means that the best way to do that is to get financing from someplace. And what better place than the community
Sure.
loan fund?
That sounds like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if I
And
may,
we're thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah.
that's wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
you're walking the walk, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I may be so bold, so how much did you actually apply for? What did you need?
Well, the last time around it was $350,000. Yeah.
Wow.
How much is it costing to restore the building, Paul?
Well, the total work on the restoration, we're probably getting close to $1 million of work that we've done on the building so far. And those are, although a lot of brick, the rear wall, we had a very interesting situation with the rear wall because there was a failed gutter system on the building. The building was built in 1847, so it's been standing there that long. But its failed gutter system was washing water into the brick and washing the mortar out of the brick. And so what they actually did is they came in, they x-rayed the wall to find where the spots were, where things had been washed out of the wall. And then we actually pumped mortar into the wall at different places, and also used a kind of a French or Belgian pinning system to adhere the widths of brick together. So there was a lot of interesting work done on the wall. The wall has been fixed. Other things that were done to the building over time, the chimneys had been taken off. We had to put the chimneys back on.
I'm going to jump in here
Yeah.
because you're talking about the construction, but the part that fascinates me about the project is just like JFJR, it's not just about the building.
Right.
Paul and Mary Liz are doing so many projects with
Yeah,
kids.
it's a story. It's really about community involvement in
Right.
terms of how the project came together. The organization, the Underground Railroad History Project, really is a very people-driven organization. We have a lot of programs we do with youth in terms of working with the summer youth program and also kids who meet throughout the year that participate in projects that will help advance the restoration of the building. They're making movies, they're doing art projects. They're doing a lot of different kinds of things. We've got a very aggressive gardening program that we have going on.
And they match up the kids from the summer youth program with mentors at the College of St. Rose in Siena,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
they're creating this mentoring relationship for kids that could be considered at risk.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, it's part of that.
There are a lot
back.
of there are a lot of neat elements
Wow.
in it, and I think for us that was one of the things. That the Underground Railroad History Project is really about a lot of different ways of getting in touch with that story and bringing that story into the lives of the people that are right there in the community right now.
That sounds wonderful. I think
Yeah.
that if people, we're running low on time right now, if people want to go to a website or find out more about that particular
They
project,
can
where
go
they
to undergroundrailroadhistory.org.
Okay. And
But they'll also want to go to mycommunityloanfund.org to
exactly, and I
how they
wasn't.
can-
We weren't going to end the program without talking about that. You know what? 30 seconds. One final thought. First, Lissa, and I'll let you close out, Paul, about Community Loan Fund.
You said, is there a time that's busier than most? And what we're finding right now is because the economy is doing better, we're having more and more applications for loans, which is great. We need capital. So I would really encourage people to get in touch with us about investing because we just launched a $6 million Invest Locally campaign, and we're looking for investors that will be supporting all this great community development
Yeah.
we've been talking about.
I would think as we hit the end of the year, there must be some tax benefit to doing that as well.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's call us. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul.
436-8586, and mycommunityloanfund.org. That's where we'd like people come, visit the site, see what's there. You can, so to speak, meet the staff, and you certainly learn about our programs.
Well, sounds wonderful.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks
Lissa,
so much for having us today.
Thanks for
Thank
being here.
you very
Paul, thanks
much.
for being here. We've been talking today about the Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region, and as you've heard, you can go to mycommunityloanfund.org, and I would encourage you to do so. I'm Mary Rozak. Thanks for joining me for Albany County News. We hope to see you again soon.